This thing moved. Hello. So I do have, you can share your screen when it comes time for your presentation.
Oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. Yes, I can. Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem. I don't know why. Here we go.
Oh, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello. Mhm. Let me just check on a few board members.
Christina, while you do that, can you confirm the order?
Yes, we are going to start with a preview of a marketing recruitment retention proposal, and then go into the agenda item of planning and placement team process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I've sent messages. We'll just hang out for one more minute, see if any more board members are joining. I didn't get any declines. Okay, Miss Browdy just texted she's leaving a parent-teacher conference. She'll be joining shortly. Chair Dara still Ledger, I don't know if you want to start or do you want to give it another minute?
I think we can get started now.
Okay.
So good afternoon. Oh, sorry. we ready?
Yes, go ahead, whenever you're ready.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our April 27, 2022 Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. We're going to start with introductions. My name is Francoise Darastel Ledger. I am the chair of Teaching and Learning Committee and Board of Education. Board of Education.
Do you want us to just go do a round robin?
That's fine, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Christina Santiago, the board liaison. Could jump in. And I see we have Mr. Walker who joined us, who's a board member, Mr. Tyrone Walker.
I'm Dr. Tiffany Curtis. I am the Chief of Talent.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Madeline Negron. I am the Chief of Academics.
Good afternoon. I'm Yvette Avila. I'm Chief of Schools.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jen Hoffman. I'm the Senior Executive Director for Special Education and Pupil Services.
Good afternoon. My name is Erin Doyle. I'm the District Coach for MTSS.
Hi, everyone. I am Hannah. I am the fellow working with the Office of Academics.
And is it Reem?
Yes, it is. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure everyone had.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just wondered.
Thank you so much. I'm Reem Noah, Senior Vice President of Strategic Services at Adams and Knight, an integrated marketing and advertising agency based in Avon, Connecticut.
Okay, so thank you for the introductions, and we are. let's see. So, we are now going to start with, before we go into the agenda, we're going to start with the preview of the recruitment retention proposal, and who will be presenting that?
I'll just briefly give an intro before Dr. Groen / Ms. Noah take over. I just want to know the board members to know that this is an item for the Finance Committee. It didn't really fit in another committee, but the superintendent today made a request that we run a preview through the Teaching and Learning Committee because there's so much information and there is only one agenda item, so we were hoping to squeeze it in. So at the last minute, thankfully, Dr. Curtis and Ms. Noah could make it. So we're going to start with that. And at that, I'll give it over to, I'm sorry, Dr. Curtis.
Thank you very much. So we're very grateful to be here presenting tonight. I'm going to invite Reem Noah from Adams and Knight to walk us through the recruitment campaign that the Office of Talent Management would like to push into the market and help to brand the district as a viable and appealing employer and career option for many different stakeholder groups. We have a mini campaign that is running right now that we just launched to test the waters last Friday. Ms. Noah will talk about that campaign as part of this presentation. And I want to remind the board that this is in an effort to support recruitment and retention in the Office of Talent Management. I'll hand it over to Ms. Noah.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Curtis. Start us off right here. So the way we organized our presentation here for you today, we like to call our 5 M's of marketing, just to kind of put us in that frame of mind. So our first M is motivation, which is basically starting with that end in mind. We will be successful when what? Or another way to say, what are our goals, right? Metrics, how we're going to measure that. So we make sure that everything we're doing ladders up to those metrics. Markets, who are the key audiences that we need to reach? That helps us, especially from a paid media standpoint, when we're trying to reach specific audiences. Messaging, what can we say? And when we talk about messaging, we talk about something that's true to who we are, relevant to the key audiences, in this case, prospects that we want to bring into our schools, and then unique in the marketplace. And then finally, methods. is basically, so we know what we need to do. We know who needs to take that action. We know what we're going to say to them. Now, how do we get that message out to them? How do we find them where they are with our messaging and be the most effective and impactful with that messaging to get them to take that action to apply, in this case, from a recruitment standpoint. So in terms of our goals or our motivation, what we need to accomplish, so we want to recruit the best talent. We want to be a magnet for those who want to work in an environment where they can really make an impact. We want to retain our current employees. We recognize that, and recognize our existing teachers and staff, and we want to make sure that they continue to feel heard and appreciated as we continue to grow our team, right? So we want to make sure that while we're doing this thing, and we know recruitment's important, that they don't feel like, oh, it's all about just bringing in new people, that, we make sure that we're also retaining while we're investing in recruitment. And then ultimately, everything we do needs to elevate our brand, right? This is an opportunity for us to go out there with messaging. So we want to make sure that we're going out with the right message to be recognized as a leading school system for our teachers, staff, and students alike. In terms of how we're going to measure that, so obviously, in terms of the recruitment, we would look at number of applications and how much, that's grown. We also have a bunch of marketing metrics, which I'll share a little bit because, like Dr. Curtis said, we are in market now. Increased retention among teachers and staff, and then an increased level of interest. So what we find when we run these kinds of campaigns is that people won't want to hear from you if they haven't heard of you, hence the importance of the brand messaging. And we find that, yes, we're getting, there is more interest, we're getting more qualified applications, and that kind of all works together. In terms of audiences we need to reach as we are, putting together the outreach. So we talked about mid-career faculty and staff, current uncertified staff, the opportunity to, to get certified, to progress. Retired faculty and staff, is absolutely an opportunity. We're seeing this in other industries as well. Retired nurses coming back and inviting them back into the workforce. So that's definitely an opportunity. New grads, career changers. We've seen a lot of this, over these past 2 years and what COVID has taught us. So there is an opportunity for people who just want to change careers. Empty nesters, a lot of people that we even know at the office who became empty nesters, of their spouses, went back and wanted to, actually, a few of them became teachers, students, and then the local community as a whole. So as we're developing these messages and we're being very thoughtful about where these messages appear, we're keeping in mind all of these, different audiences. Like I said, this also gives us an opportunity because from a digital marketing standpoint, we can be very targeted. And so knowing that these are some of the types of people that we would, that this message could resonate with and that we want to bring in to our staff, that also helps us from a targeting standpoint. So from a messaging standpoint, we worked as we got very excited and we had come up with, multiple directions, and we came to Dr. Curtis and the team, and we ended up narrowing down to this direction that I'm going to walk you through here. This first part is really how we talk about it. It's more of a, think of it like a blueprint. It's what we call a positioning statement, and then we'll show you how we brought it to life with actual creative. And this is specific to the recruitment. So this is the blueprint. Hartford Public Schools is hiring, but not just anyone. We're looking for people who can connect with our beautiful, capable students. They teach or support, people in whom students can see themselves, their cultures, and their futures. People who can serve as role models, who will help redefine the school system. With this direction, we demonstrate to prospective employees that this is your chance to make a difference by showing up for Hartford students, showing that you're passionate about their education, and showing what's possible. This is your chance to represent. So that's kind of the overarching theme. represent, and you'll see how we brought it to life. So these are our wonderful, teachers. We did a photo shoot and they were amazing. And this is a social post. And this is what is currently the mini campaign that Dr. Curtis mentioned earlier that is in market. And we were able to, get to talk to and find out kind of what moves them so that we can make sure that this is authentic to what they feel like they represent. So as a Hartford School alum, Victoria loves representing community success to her students. What can you represent with us? And there she is, and we have represent community, represent, now hiring for many positions. The call to action drives to our website with all of the open positions. Or in the case here of Shakira loves representing the power to change the future to her students. Join us and show our students what's possible. Represent power. And then in the case of Narcisco, grew up in the Frog Hollow neighborhood. Today, he represents all that's possible for his students. Come represent your story with us. Represent local pride. So these were 3 different angles that we were able to, in 3 different stories. And there's so much opportunity because we got a lot of great photos of them and, they shared stories, and we're going to be able to create even more content. And the idea is to be able to continue to highlight, additional staff members. So as we mentioned, this is already in market. So a little quick preview. It hasn't been like just a few days really for the social campaign and for the paid search, about a week. So search will be launched on Monday, the 18th. We've already driven 725 clicks to the site. So paid search, essentially people looking for, so these are more qualified. These are people that are searching for jobs in whether it's to be a teacher, some of the other open jobs that we have. And we have keywords out there based on all of our open jobs so that we can catch them essentially and drive them with our paid ad to apply on our site. So we've already had 725 people click to the site from the ad. And that is like considered a click-through rate of 9%, which is 66% above benchmark. So typically in search campaigns, we see about a 6% click-through rate. So that's already a really great indicator that this is powerful. The second piece from a social standpoint, so like I said, the paid social just launched on Friday. We've already driven 500 clicks. So this is on Facebook. So again, this is not like an organic post on Facebook, but think more like the paid ads that you may see on Facebook. And we've had a very strong click-through rate of 0.87, which is again 54% above benchmark. Typically, we see click-through rates with Facebook campaigns around 0.47%. So we just wanted to share that little indicator, and everything that we would do, we're going to continue to monitor. The beauty of digital is that we're able to monitor and optimize. We have 3 ads, for example, in market. We'll see what keywords are working, and we can turn up, turn down, just to make sure that we're, leveraging the dollars to create that impact. How else can we bring this to life potentially? So we looked at t-shirts, different tchotchkes. These are just kind of designs to give you a sense of where we could take this with some of our hiring events or some of our, other kinds of events. Here's, potential. We talked about maybe even, there's a lot of murals happening in Hartford and artists, do we partner with somebody? So a lot of opportunity to see how we could potentially bring this to life. And then, like I said, some of the tchotchkes, whether, lanyards, tote bags, hats. We got excited. We wanted to show you how it could come to life. From a retention standpoint, because we talked about from a recruitment standpoint, right? And we kind of talked about that idea and come and represent, and it kind of builds pride. Like, yes, I want to come here. We're going to attract the right kind of people that really want to make an impact. From a retention standpoint, we want to also make sure that everybody feels connected, to what it is that we're trying to do internally. So this is our messaging strategy for that piece. In the Hartford Public Schools, you don't have to be a teacher to impart valuable lifelong lessons to our beautiful, capable students. We are more than 3,300 employees with dozens of different titles, but we all have one common mission: to provide an inspiring, nurturing learning environment. however we each can, whether that's leading a classroom or landscaping the school grounds. This direction would emphasize that everyone's got something to contribute, right? Everyone working towards this common goal. Sometimes it's hard. If I'm not a teacher, then, then maybe I'm not as important and I'm not as connected to the student. No, this shows how every single person matters. Every single person impacts the overall experience that we're all having, and that the ultimate, students are having. So everybody has something to contribute, culture, and give credit, responsibility to everyone who's impacting our students, both directly and indirectly. It is both a reminder and a redefining rally cry, letting current and prospective employees of all kinds know that in Hartford Public Schools, we are all educators, right? So not just teach, we are all educators. How could that come to life? Again, this is stock. We haven't brought it to life yet. This is still in the conceptual phase. So for example, everyone in the Hartford Public Schools has something to teach our beautiful, capable students. Apply today to be an educator. Abby teaches healthy eating. Or in this case, Sam actually came back from retirement to share his love of history with our students. What can you contribute to their education? Sam teaches history again. So just to kind of give a sense, we can, be able to share, different stories and really recognize, different employees and staff members for what they're doing, and then they feel connected kind of to the overall purpose. So with everything that I shared now, so we talked about how we're going to be successful, how we're going to measure that success. We already started to see some of that measurement, shared our who we need to bring in. And we talked about, what we can say from both an external and an internal standpoint. Now, in terms of the methods, how are we going to bring this messaging to life? So this is an ecosystem of engagement, right? There are a lot of tactics here, ultimately based on where we want to end up from a budget standpoint and a timing standpoint. This is very flexible, but some of the things that we would love to explore are creating streaming audio. So streaming audio is essentially radio on Pandora and Spotify, and that allows us to get more of that message out there. So, I said at the beginning, people want to hear from you if they haven't heard of you. That allows us to do that high level awareness. So a radio commercial coupled with, now I'm online, maybe searching, or I'm on Facebook and I see your ad and I heard that, right? That frequency and everything kind of works better when it works together. We tend to see, higher conversion. So radio, video is a great way to tell these stories. So those photos were amazing. But in person, they were really great and lively. So as a prospective employee, if I see somebody who already works there and really loves working there and talks about why, to be able to share that. I know you guys have some great videos on your website. We would create videos and kind of push them out there, and you'll see how through a paid media strategy to get the message out there. Experiential, meaning event stuff, and I'll get into that. Google search, which we're currently doing, so the paid search, social media, which we're currently doing, and we can continue to build on. We're looking at LinkedIn as well, and potentially Instagram, and maybe even Snapchat. Website refresh and digital ads. So, making sure from a journey we're driving them when they get to the website, how can we improve the experience on the website, visually, that they feel that it looks like the campaign. So those are things that would be part of this, creating templates for brochures and direct mail so that everything that's created, kind of works and looks the same overall. Mobile marketing and geofencing. So this could be at specific events or at our hiring events that we're able to geofence a space. So using GPS technology, basically the cell phones of everyone, it triggers a message, and then we're able to get their IP address so we can get our ad onto their phone and so that they can come and see our get to our website, see our ad, but more importantly, we can retarget them afterwards as well. So we've done this successfully with other clients. It's kind of like and we'll talk about this a little bit with our retargeting and remarketing. Like when you're, the example I always love, because I love cowboy boots. So I might, be looking at a pair, then I'm back on Facebook, or I'm working on a presentation, and then that ad like pops up again because they know I didn't buy it. It's in my cart, and they, you know, they're constantly reminding me. So it's kind of that kind of a thing. And then also partnerships. So making sure that we're leveraging your existing partnerships, and then maybe there are some other ones. So paid search we talked about. Social media we talked about. Programmatic digital, really quickly, what I was talking about in terms of remarketing. We can also remarket. So say somebody saw our ad or our Facebook ad or a paid digital ad, and they came to our website, but maybe they didn't apply. So we can retarget them to make sure, essentially not let them go until they apply, in a really cool way. But, you know, it's a way to make sure that we're continuously, in front of them. We're also going to be able to run pre-roll video to extend the awareness of the campaign, and we would have banner ads. So you may see digital banner ads like on news sites, and again, depending on our paid media plan, we would be able to be on those different websites, and again, with our message. So we would appear in many different ways to all drive back to our website where people can apply. So that would be from a digital strategy. I talked about streaming radio in terms of Pandora. And then streaming video. So we'll have the video, we'll be able to put it on social, we'll be able to put it on our website. You can use it at, in email, but also we could also use it for those cord cutters. So in a way, it could almost serve as a TV commercial for us. So, because we'll be on streaming platforms like DirecTV, Sling, Roku, Food Discovery. So that would also, and then those streaming services always offer both a geo and like a third-party audience data. So we'll know exactly who we're getting our message out from in terms of like the audiences that we talked about. So just making sure we're being efficient with the dollars. So that was all from a paid media standpoint. We could also look at earned media. So I'm sure there are lots of really great stories that we'd be able to tell and maybe pitch to the media. Maybe there's an educator who left corporate America, wanted to change their career, and is making an impact now. We have a lot of amazing female leaders, and we'd love to be able to demonstrate that and pitch that and show the impact of a women-led school system. So a lot of different stories that we can tell, and the idea would be that we could, pitch these stories to the media and also tell them as video stories and get them out there. You have a lot of amazing partnerships. We would find ways to enhance those partnerships, and potentially also make sure that you have all the right tools. And like I said, from a communication standpoint, that everything kind of works together and visually kind of is the same message as well. And then finally, I talked a little bit about geofencing. There are a lot of great events that are going to be happening in August and September and even July. They're not that expensive to like host a booth or to sponsor, but we can also geofence those areas with our ads as well. So being able to be at these events and be present, with our represent shirts, we could have, like, if there are staff that, or we could also have teams in the shirts that are, representing and, getting our name out there to remind people and let them know that we are hiring. And then making sure that we also have really cool tchotchkes and updated collateral and materials at our own hiring events. So that's just a way that we could bring that to life as well. So overall, from a budget perspective, you'll see here we have the prices, kind of broken out for each of the specific tactics, right? If we were to do like streaming video, what the paid social campaign assets are. These are the creative asset development. So meaning, again, we don't have to do all of these. You may say we're going to focus on digital, so we're going to do the paid social campaign and we're going to do streaming video. So those would be the components that we would, for example, choose, and maybe we'll do the radio. So it would be those three components, but you own those, right? So once we create them, they are yours to push out and to have. And what's beautiful is once we have this campaign, we'll be able to leverage it for, for years to come. So these are the different costs for each of the different, kind of tactics that I walked through. And then on the other side here, these are kind of the monthly fees in terms of the planning, the media management, the search management. So there's like, to be able to be tracking and optimizing and all of that. And then the actual paid media. If we were to do everything that I showed you, that would be the paid media budget for that for a 3-month campaign. Like I said, this is a very flexible and scalable budget. We can scale back. We can continue to kind of test and learn. We can phase things in. So, but we wanted to, kind of share our best thinking, and then, based on budget, again, we'll be able to optimize that to hopefully have an impact.
Thank you, Reem. And just so the board knows, we are still working with the superintendent to determine the scale of the project that we would want to take to the finance committee for approval. And with that, I want to say thank you for your time, and that concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much for that. That was a very thorough presentation, lots of information. I'd like to know if anyone has any questions. I don't see any hands up. And I think we are good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we are going to go into our agenda item. And we have one, which is planning and placement team process. And who will be presenting?
You're on mute, Dr. Negron.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Negron, I thought you were saying something. You were on mute if you were. Sorry.
Here I am thinking.
You know how it
will
is.
coordinate. Well, I am ready to get us started if we're ready.
Yes, we are.
Okay. And Christina, will you be facilitating that slide deck?
Yes.
So we can, if you can get that up. So before I get started, again, Dr. Madeline Negron, Chief of Academics, just wanted to share that there was a request to learn more about the planning and placement team process, commonly known as the PPT, as well as learning more about special education and parental rights within special education. So Christina, next slide, please. Today, I am joined by Jennifer Hoffman, who is our Senior Executive Director for Special Education and Pupil Services, as well as Erin Doyle, who is our district-wide coach for multi-tier systems of support, known as MTSS. In this presentation, you will have an opportunity to explore past and current trends in special education within our District of Hartford Public Schools. You will understand the continuum of services and supports that are offered to students in both the general education and the special education setting. And we are going to be discussing the PPT process. We're also going to be reviewing the parental rights within the special education process. And I just want to highlight that, again, these are not our articulated rights. These are the rights within the statutes related to special education. And also we're going to be outlining differences between different types of special education services. Before we go there, thank you, Christina. I just want to make clear that the special education department works diligently to support the district's mission, which is to support the full potential of each and every student. Our goal is to ensure that all students, even students with disabilities, all students have access to general education curriculum and that they can benefit from the general education curriculum. The special education department supports students who have been identified as requiring special education in a variety of schools, starting with our own district schools. And again, those are all the 39 schools, right, that we oversee and that we manage and support, as well as Craig Magnet Schools, Learn Magnet Schools, Open Choice, and neighboring communities if they are Hartford residents. So again, I am now going to turn it over to our Senior Executive Director of Special Education, Ms. Jennifer Hoffman.
Thanks, Dr. Negron. We can go to the next slide, Christina. Thank you. So before we get into the actual PPT process, I wanted to just give a high-level overview of the students that we do service within the district. To date, we have 3,891 students that we do serve under special education. And this graph gives us an overview of some of those programs. So 56% of our students receive their special education services within their school. We do have 3 in-district programs. We have the RISE program, our iGoals program, and our STEP program. And about 4% of our population is serviced through those programs. We also have students that receive their services in out-of-district programming. That's about 8% of our population. And then the other 32% is, like Dr. Negron said, receiving their services in either a magnet school, a charter school, or a choice school. And the chart on the left just gives you a comparison to the state and national average. We can go to the next slide. This slide just shows an overview of our 5 and 10-year trends. We have seen a trend, an increase over time, which I think is similar to the national average. We can go to the next slide, thank you. And this slide will be reviewed by Erin Doyle, who is our MTSS district coach.
Good evening again. Thank you, Jen. So we have a continuum of supports that begin in the general education setting for general education students, and then continue for our special education students or students receiving special education services. And foundational to all of this is our Tier 1 universal level of supports. That is our core curriculum and grade level content. That is available to all students, whether they are identified students or are students that are within our general education setting. And that core curriculum and grade level content includes differentiated instruction that is aligned with grade level standards. And the supports that are provided in service of grade level standards can include a variety of accommodations and designated supports that will best help students be able to master grade level expectations. That yellow vertical line that you see between Tier 1 and Tier 2 is representative of our universal screening measures. Those measures are assessments that are in the areas of math and reading, and that will help inform the tiered approaches that we provide students who are in need of additional supports. So dependent upon how students perform on those assessments, we can provide either Tier 2 supports or Tier 3 supports. Tier 2 supports are additional targeted interventions that are generally based on additional assessment data that we gather in order to be able to be very specific and to really target and pinpoint the area of need. Those interventions are progress monitored regularly so that we can determine the degree to which students are making progress toward that area of intervention. And those are provided in addition to Tier 1 instruction. So it's not in lieu of Tier 1, it's in addition to. And they're delivered generally in small group and most frequently by classroom teachers. The next level of support is our Tier 3 or our intensive levels of support. Generally, students that are receiving Tier 3 interventions have needs that are further away from grade level expectations. And so those interventions are generally going to be more targeted. They're going to be more frequent with smaller group sizes. And the person providing the intervention is generally somebody who's not the classroom teacher. And we have those interventions are provided in addition to both tier 1 and tier 2, so that we're really increasing the level of support that we are providing students. And again, we will be using additional assessment data so that we can really ensure that the area that we're targeting for intervention is both a high leverage area, but also is directly tied to an area of need. And again, they are progress monitored more frequently. The data is reviewed more frequently so that we can make informed decisions about that student and their progress towards the goals that are set out at the beginning of the intervention. Those two double lines that are blue really represent kind of a gatekeeping measure that occurs between the interventions that we provide in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 with the special education continuum of supports that Jennifer will be going through a little bit more explicitly next. So really what we see is a linear level, linear progress of support, but within each of those tiers, it's cyclical in that we're identifying an area of need, providing and monitoring the intervention, and then reassessing at the end of that cycle to determine what happens next with that student, whether they continue in interventions at that tier 2 or tier 3 level, whether we change the focus of the intervention or the strategy that we're utilizing, or whether we increase the level of support and the intensity of the interventions being provided.
We can go to the next slide, Christina. Thank you. So as Erin mentioned, we have our MTSS process that is our general ed setting. And in the event that a student does require specialized instruction, we have a continuum of services that we have in the district. On the left, in the green, shows the most inclusive or the least restrictive environment. And those services are generally in our general ed classrooms. If we have students that require additional academic or behavioral supports, there is a shift to the right where we have in-district supports all the way through a more restrictive environment, which would include self-contained programs within the district or out of district placements all the way through residential placement. So that is, and again, like Erin's saying, students can move within those, within the continuum based on their need. So this high level overview, and this is really just a basic structure of the PPT team. The PPT or planning and placement team meets to review referrals. They discuss evaluations and determine the student's specific educational needs and eligibility for special education services. That team is made up of the parent of the student. Depending on age, the student is also invited to the PPT. We have a general ed teacher, special education teacher, a school administrative representative from the building. Generally, we have pupil services personnel who also attend, again, depending on the need, but it could generally be a school psychologist, a social worker, or a school counselor that works with the student. And then depending on decisions made by the PPT, evaluations would also be recommended and reviewed, and representatives that could interpret those evaluations include school psychologists, special education teachers. Sometimes we have a board certified board analyst, a BCBA, that's also attends the PPT. Next slide. So here we have sort of a flow chart of the process, more or less. And so at any point, if a parent feels or if a classroom teacher feels that a student is not making sufficient progress or is struggling in any way, they can make a referral, which is a written request for an evaluation of the student, and that is referred to as our PPT-1. So that referral is made. The parent can agree or decline to attend or move forward with that PPT. And oftentimes data is reviewed at that PPT and potentially evaluations are discussed. And in the event that evaluations are discussed, the team really looks at some data to identify the student's learning strengths and needs. We really want to talk about what the needs look like and how it could be linked to a specific disability category. And then we determine if that student is eligible for special education services. We come back to the table with PPT2 to do that. So there is a federal timeline that we follow, and this is not just a Hartford process, it is a federal process that we follow. Next slide. So when we talk about evaluations, that could really look many ways, and it really depends on that student's level of need. Generally, there's an academic component, and in the district, we use the WIAT. For cognitive, which is also a typical evaluation, we use the WISC. And depending on social emotional need, students may, or parents may also give permission for a functional behavioral assessment or an FBA to be completed, which then moves into a behavior intervention plan. We also can conduct behavior rating scales, clinical interviews, a social work report, or a complete review of records. And the visual on this side just sort of notes the different related service providers that could be involved in that PPT. Next slide. So the parent or family piece is crucial within the PPT process, and Hartford Public Schools works very hard to ensure that parents, families, guardians are on board and part of the conversation when we move in this direction to a potential referral and determination of eligibility. So parents are notified of their rights at least once a year, and their rights include written notice of the PPT, and whether there are proposed or refused changes to their plan. That's if a student is identified. Their attendance is crucial, and we always want them to be part of that conversation all the way through that referral and through the development of the IEP. We also have parents involved as we need their written consent to move forward with some evaluations or some other suggestions considered by the team. There are times where their teams may not agree on the outcome of the PPT, and so there is a due process procedure that is in place with the state that they can follow, and there's another side that we'll get into for that process. And then there's also a review of records, which is part of their parental rights. Next slide. So again, just a general overview. Again, we worked really hard to ensure that parents truly understand the process and that their needs are met as well. They are part of the team, and we want to make sure that they are engaged and understand the process. There are times when a parent disagrees with PPT decisions, and so parents can always reference their procedural safeguards. Like I mentioned, that is provided at least once a year, but if it's always offered at the PPT. There is also a parent's guide to special education, with which the State Department of Education has created, and we share. There's also a link at the end of this slide deck with a link to the Connecticut Department of Education, specifically special education, that has a number of links. And in the event that a parent, again, does not agree, they can take the stance of filing a state complaint. They can request mediation, or they can file for due process. Those are all within their rights. And what I also included was just a 3-year trend of complaints that we've seen over time. We have seen a decrease. I would say that's probably a combination of COVID But I would also say that the Office of Special Education Student Support Services, again, works really hard to ensure that parents understand their rights. We have a collaborative effort when we go into PPTs, and the team works closely with the schools so that we ultimately don't have to move in that direction. Next slide. So I wanted to include just as visual to point out just some differences between an IEP and a 504 plan. An IEP is required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and the 504 plans fall under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The major difference between an IEP and a 504 plan, if you come down to what is included, a 504 plan is around accommodations and really accommodating what the student needs to be successful or have access to their general ed setting. The IEP is specialized instruction, and we modify. We could also have accommodations, but we generally modify what is being delivered to that student. So that's the major difference there. Next slide. One other important point I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that we are in a pilot program right now. We've been working with the state since September for a shift to a new IEP system, which is called CT SEDS. And so effective July 1, the entire state will be moving to the new IEP and platform. We have been a pilot district and working with the state on the IEP side as well as 504, which means that we've been able to have conversations and have a team in place with the state and other districts to learn more about the process and what will be expected to put into place come July 1. So over the last few months, all of our special education staff, our social workers, speech and language pathologists, OTPT, and school psychologists have all participated in this mandated training, which will also continue through next year. We will also have additional sessions when the actual platform goes live in July. So we're working on that and also working to ensure that our parents and families really understand this new shift. Next slide. We also included a list of just terminology. There's a lot of terminology in the world of special education and 504. So we wanted to just give some basic terms and definitions is what we reference. And then the last slide is again, just links to different resources from the state. And yeah, the last slide is just any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. And I see we do have a question from Board Member Brody.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple questions. So the first question is, can you say that you are up to date and knowledgeable about the new system, the new process that's approaching us on July 1, I think you said?
So I will say we have been in this pilot for almost a year, and it has taken some time, and it is a bit of a shift, and it will require our special education teachers, support staff, related service staff, and our families to think about programming in a different way. So I don't think anybody's 100% right now, but I am confident that the team has engaged as much as possible in the background training so that they're ready to lift this work in July.
And where are we? So we don't have a concrete plan on when we are going to be educating parents about this new process.
So I have, there's a link for parents and families on the state website, but I've also been in conversation with Chief Blackburk for some parent outreach.
Parent outreach, parent training, do you have an idea of what that looks like right now?
So because the platform is not live until July, the state has only given us one module to work with parents on. So I can only take it as far as I have information from the state. So it would be around an overview right now and then additional training as we get started for next year.
Okay, so do we have a concrete plan on for parents, or are we just pointing them to the link? I'm saying a concrete plan as of what we have and what we know right now.
That is in the works.
Okay, so how are we going to know when this is because July 1 is not that far away. So in the works, do we know what that means?
So Ms. Brody, I'm going to step in, and what we mean in the works is that because we have different offices and we're always looking for an office to help us do the lift. So this is the time when, right, Jen Hoffman and the rest of her team would be working in collaboration with Chief Blackburk and her team to start designing, right? What will the outreach look like? Is it communication? Is it family workshops like we do with other things around academics? But that's when the visioning will be happening, as well as Jennifer Hoffman being able to say, hey, by X date, I will have all the resources that the state will give me and will allow me to release so that then they can start back mapping, right? So right now, a lot of the work has been making sure that our folks are all going through this training as part of the pilot, so that when July comes in, right, at least people know they're going to navigate all the documents that go into the actual IEP platform. So like you're saying, right, everything is around the corner because the state is continuing the training. Next week is May. So yes, we're going to have to be putting the plan, finalizing it, and then releasing what all of that will look like so that we are ready, like you said, with our own internal people come July, and definitely with parents as we begin the new academic year, because that's when they'll have to be inside of this whole new platform.
Thank you for that. So this is my thought, and then I'll pause to make room for other board members because I'm sure there's probably questions. My thought, and I've seen this like in other things that definitely involves a parent, not something we do at school and we're just telling parents what we do. I'm saying the things that Hartford Public Schools do that definitely involves a parent. When you're thinking about the staff and what the staff needs, at the same time, you have to start thinking immediately about what the parent needs and plan for that. Not, we're going to get all of us, staff and everything on board. Then we think about the parent. I think the parent has to be in mind at the same time. And I think that'll allow us to do it better, even though we are not, because we know we have, parents are definitely 100% going to be a part of this rollout. Not probably at the time that staff is because of their duties, but I think like when we did with the tutoring, I think my perception, which is definitely probably not your intent, is that parents we'll deal with parents later, like not an afterthought, but close to it. So I think when we start planning for ourselves as a school district at the same time, we should start planning because we never want to be in a position that we're asking we've been in a pilot for a year, and we never want to be in a position like now to say, oh, we're planning for parents. So I think if we think that way, we'll be able to respond like to questions like this a little bit better. Because if anyone has sat in PPT meetings as I have over the years, and now my professional life actually is centered around supporting parents and PPTs, they are the most they're at the most disadvantage in the room. They know the least. They are the ones that are learning as the meeting is going on at times. So this is one of the things that we need to, do a better job with. And I think the opportunity is that we can do better right with this this new system that's going to be rolled out. Thank you.
So Ms. Brody, I just want to add that we agree with you. We know how complicated this process is. We also know how complicated having to learn a new dashboard, right? That holds, or basically is holding all the documentation, communication that is surrounding every decision related to a special education child. So what I want to make sure that I make clear, the difference between this and us rolling out any other program, we're talking about we have to learn ourselves what exactly are the things that the state is going to be requiring within this system, so that then we can turnkey the training. We cannot turnkey training when we don't even have our own capacity to do so. So I just want to clarify that point, that like you said, this is very complex. And right, the conversation started this year. The actual training has rolled out. And now I think in the spring, because it's a sequence of modules that everybody has to take. So it doesn't mean that we're not even thinking about the parents, because all along we are like, oh my God. And we're like, there's so much training that is going to have to happen. So I just want to assure you that it is, we're being intentional about the capacity building that everyone is going to be requiring to, again, make sure that we don't lose a beat, right? Because this is extremely high stakes, because again, these are all around the legalities and the documentation that we have to get right. But again, that as soon as we're ready to release at least what the training will look like, the outreach will look like, we're gonna make sure that we do aggressive marketing around it. Again, lifting the importance, again, that we all understand, and that you have done a great job of naming here. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brody, for your questions. We have Board Member Oliver.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. A quick question, so I believe Hartford Public Schools also provides special ed support to preschool children, or maybe they are not even in preschool yet, and they're not in a Hartford Public Schools, say, classroom, right? So I was just wondering if you could, just very briefly, just mention how that also intersects, and that Hartford Public Schools is involved with that early development and special education work. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, I have one director, Allison Ward, who oversees our pre-K and, well, more than that, but specifically works with our pre-K programs. She also works with the Birth to 3 programs to ensure that there's a transition process and students are evaluated or serviced within those programs so that they can transition to that kindergarten classroom with a plan in place and the team ready to support. That's like a high level, that's a high level response, but.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was helpful. And if I have other questions, I'll follow up. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I have a question, Ms. Hoffman, with regards to the module that has already been rolled out to, in the pilot program. What's the takeaway you have right now with regards to this new system that's going to be onboarding, and what has traditionally been happening over the last several years?
Sure. So there's 8 modules that are in the new system for our training purposes. And something that we've discussed at length as a team is that right now the platform that we use is there's a lot of fields that just require case managers or related service staff to just go in and click on to sort of work through the IEP. This new platform will really require our teams to use a tremendous amount of data to support decisions that we're making. And it will also create more of a narrative response rather than just the clicking of the fields. So to Ms. Brody's point, it will allow us to engage in deeper conversations about the student's need, their strengths, and where we can ensure that they're receiving supports, but also ensure that we are allowing them to grow. And really, like, the ultimate goal is that we fade or decrease services over time. Some students that takes a little bit longer, but this new process will allow us to engage in those deeper conversations.
Okay, thank you. So I have another question.
Yep.
With regards to what Ms. Oliver was, when she mentioned early childhood, the early childhood piece, will there be, if there's an IEP or the PPT process or the information that you gather, will there be almost like a database where if a child is receiving services in one area, and when they move to another school or another, another area, like, as they get older and as they progress and as they may or may not continue to need services, will that information follow them? And will the classroom teachers, the school psychologists, the different individuals the school social workers have access to that information like right away, as opposed to discovering that there was an issue or some concerns or services that were in place months ago or prior to the child going to the next educational place?
That's a good question. So the current platform that we use is called Frontline, and there is a document repository embedded in the platform. And in that document repository, we house all evaluations, consent forms, any form that's signed or reviewed with a parent is housed there. We are understanding that there will be a similar spot in the new platform so that any student that transfers to a different school, teachers in whatever building will have access to that information. And that's the same for the IEP as well. So right now we transfer information if a student moves district to district, that we will almost eliminate that piece because it's one platform for the entire state.
That's good to know. Let's see if there are questions. Mr. Walker, Board Member Walker has a question or two.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Ledger. So there is, well, here's a question. So it's been piloted. How have the parents been what role have they played in this? I'm not hearing like a lot of partnering with parents in the way that it's been talked about to this point. So what role have parents played in this piloting? That's question one.
So right now for the pilot program, so we've looked at the pilot program in two veins. One is around IEP quality training. And so that is the training that our entire staff has engaged in over the last few months. That training is specific to the new sections of the IEP and how the staff is expected to understand those sections in order to run an efficient PPT.
Right.
So that right now that piece doesn't, and that's across the board with the state as well. That does not include a parent training for that piece yet. And so like Dr. Negron had mentioned, we're moving toward that as we move into that next piece, which is user proficiency. And that's the actual platform and engagement through that PPT process.
Okay, so to this point, then parents haven't in the piloting, parents haven't been actively involved in the piloting to this point?
Not at this point right now, no, because we needed to have our staff trained on the actual platform.
And so I understand that, Ms. Hoffman. So as it's been expressed, the new system is rolling out in July with, it sounds like, some substantial differences in how things are going to work. So I'd like to see it kind of registered as a risk, right? I mean, what I mean is a risk is to understand that something that's rolled out in July, from my experience, tends to be buggy. I mean, that is going to roll out in July and be perfectly ready to roll, mature and effective to use is unlikely. So that's going to further stall the ability to train parents, because until the bugs get worked out, it's hard to tell anybody what is it and what is it going to be. And so then to me, the high likelihood is you're almost going to be at the start of school and you're going to be trying to train parents while trying to get this thing up to speed. And so to me, risk here is high likelihood of parents being confused by the process and not being able to effectively engage the process. I just want to capture that, because the way the PPT is expressed, it's expressed as if parents are at the center of the process. And it's unlikely that they're going to be the center of the process when they're not going to understand it. So one of the reasons I want to have it listed as a risk is the folks like yourself and Chief Negron, we'd have to trust you to be on the front lines of pulling the stop button, because there may be the potential that hands have to be raised and say, hey, we're really not ready for this new tool yet, because our parents, there's just things that will happen. And so is that kind of mitigation in place yet? Have you guys discussed that?
If I could clarify, maybe I was not clear. So the state has made a decision for the entire the board of or the state special education office has made the decision to shift to this new platform. So the entire state is moving. And I think I need to clarify, it's not the PPT process that's changing, it's the platform. So the way that the pages of the IEP, the look of the IEP is what's going to be different. The entire process and how we engage parents, that's the same. So I'm sorry if that was not clear. It's the actual platform that we needed to learn and that the state is changing, not the process.
Now I'm confused, because I understand the state's rolling it out. So I realized that there's going to be immediate compliance and alignment element, right? So I realize we're all going to be on board. Now, I'm just going to say, 3 letters, right? DMV, right? Because what I'm saying, the state DMV rolled out a statewide thing that got pulled back at some point because it really wasn't effective. So I get it. I'm just saying that the people like you who are using it have to have some preparation to say, if it doesn't work like it's supposed to, someone has to raise their hand and say compliance or not, it isn't working right. Right. And the other piece is if it's transparent to families and parents, then there will be no need for training. So I'm believing it can't be both. There has to be something here that's different and changing so parents need to be trained on it. And so my concern is that parents get further confused, and I'm just voicing that. And what I'm hearing is very success-oriented A, B, C. And what would be helpful to actually do as an action is where the risk that we can see as we are looking at it. What's our mitigation for the risk? And at what point do we just say, hey, it can't move quite this way we think? And so I'll put that out there. And then the other part is in this process, is there not a harm in having some parent group right now with you side by side, going through a little bit of your confusion? Not that you're trying to train them, but the parents themselves are understanding something big is coming, it's coming. We don't totally understand it yet. But partnering is that kind of process where it's not like the expectation is you're going to have all the answers and you're going there as the expert, but that as partners in this process, that you're sharing with them what's actually going to be happening so they can prepare themselves and understand that it's coming, it's new, it may not work out the gate, maybe a little bumpy. If they can just know that as partners, then mentally they, I think, are maybe better prepared for what may be confronting them in September and October.
Thank you for that. We have definitely, through our pilot process, shared our concerns with the state. And so I think if when we do roll this out in July, if there's an overwhelming sense that it's not working, I would hope that the state would listen to that feedback. But we have shared, pieces that we think make the process a little bit smoother and easier for parents and families to understand and engage with. And there's definitely some pieces that people may struggle with, but we have shared all that feedback.
Okay, I'm going to end here. So I guess if I'm trying to give an action, it may be to consider a similar kind of communication that goes out to parent partners so they understand as well what's about to happen.
Thank you, Board Member.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Walker. I do have another question. With regards to the platform that's going to be rolling out in July, are you looking, I know that things are in the works with regards to parent education, but are parents aware now whose children, do have IEPs, and are they aware now that there is a change coming, as opposed to parents being able to just, discover this on this, State Department of Education website?
We have not formally communicated the change yet, but I would bet that conversation is happening in schools as we are having PPTs at the end of the year. What we also tried to do was ensure that PPTs that needed to be held early next year are held this year, so that parents knew that there would be a change and we would be able to engage with the old IEP before moving into that new system.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if there's Ms. Brody, your hand is up. Do you have another question, or was that?
Nope, I have another question. So first, I did want to say, so we can't guess that this conversation is happening at the school level. If this is the district that gives directives or suggestions to the school level. So it should be something that we are suggesting. We actually should be directing, since the only thing available now is the module on the state website, we should actually be directing or encouraging our parents to actually take advantage of what's available at the moment until we do our outreach and training. But I wanted to also mention, because Ms. Oliver is on the line also, because it was a comment made earlier around younger children in their some receiving services. So I don't know if the district is aware. I'm learning of the app and system myself called Sparkler. I believe Waterbury is more involved, and it's like the mayor and the superintendent more on board with it. And maybe we could possibly get a presentation here to learn about it, or in some capacity. So it's an app that parents could interact with. It's like, it's multi-level, but like it's hooked to 211 to services when we're noticing things in young children, for them not to wait to get to school in kindergarten or pre-K, actually being connected to services. And there's some assessments that could happen. There's agencies waiting to assist them, like Birth to 3 and those sort of things. So I think I just learned of it and got a brief overview yesterday, but I believe that is something, and because I always will continue to say that if we are not worried about our families before they get to us and reaching them there, I don't know how we think we're going to really impact education in the way that we need to, because we know what we encounter in kindergarten. The data is there. So I don't know if it's appropriate to learn about Sparkler here, or for the school district to do their research. But if we're finding, if we're able to get family services for young children from birth before kindergarten, I think it's worth the inquiry at least. Thank you.
I see Ms. Oliver dropped in the chat that we are using. Yes, it is on our website and it has been shared with parents. But if we can always do an overview of the app and how it's used to provide more information.
Okay, my suggestion, through you, Madam Chair, is not that we're saying, oh, parents, it's this Sparkler app, check it out, saying that, do we want to champion it as Waterbury is, and getting parents into this app that would benefit them. So I know it's probably out there, and especially like some of the early learning centers. I know the city of Hartford is definitely aware of it, but we can't be championing it in at least Hartford Public Schools, or pushing it with our families, because I've never heard of it until this week. So that's all I'm saying. Is it worth it? Maybe we find out it's not, but at least some kind of report back that an inquiry at least have been done, because it's at no cost to us, it doesn't even require our involvement. Just the awareness, that part, that's what I'm asking.
So I would say, like you're saying, that we can definitely explore and see if there's more there. And thank you, Ms. Oliver, for indicating that you're willing to help. So we will be sure to reach out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brody, for your questions and bringing up the app. Oh, I see you clapping. Okay, you were clapping. Okay, and thank you, Ms. Oliver, for your contribution to assisting with this process of bringing about the awareness to the schools. And are there any more questions at this time? Okay, so I have one more question. With regards to the modules and being and the training that's the pilot that's taking place, is there an opportunity for board members to be part of receive some information or be part of this training somehow?
I would say that the opportunity is always there as the team builds capacity around the platform and they start putting together everything to plan for the parent workshops. It will be very easy, right, to make sure that we're providing you as board members that information well in advance. So we could certainly do that.
That would definitely be helpful because this would, better equip us as board members to, when we're communicating with parents, when we're communicating with families with regards to this platform. Because I know as member, but more importantly, as a parent and as an advocate, it's important to be knowledgeable of what's happening, of what's taking place. And it's, having read many IEPs, having sat in on many IEP meetings, many PPTs, it can be confusing for the parents, especially when they get the paperwork, so this is the more information that we have as board members, and also even as an educator, would be very helpful. Okay, and do we have any takeaways? Anything else that you'd like to wrap up with?
I think we are clear on our side, right? As we continue to progress through the pilot that the state is rolling out to all the districts in Connecticut, Ms. Hoffman is going to continue the engagement with the Office of Family and Community Engagement to start planning out what that series of workshops, communication and outreach will look like. And then at the same time, explore a little further with Ms. Oliver around information related to Sparkler, just to make sure that we haven't missed anything. I think those are our two takeaways.
One thing I'd like to request, if I may, is at when we convene next month, is if we can have some dates as to when the parent education piece will be implemented with regards to the new platform.
We can certainly bring you that.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's see. Looks like everyone is good with regards to questions. So I believe that we are done, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thank you for the presentations, and everyone have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.